Consider this fundamental truth. Your consciousness is the only reality. Everything you perceive outside yourself is simply consciousness externalized. Your conversations, your arguments, your constant need to discuss and analyze your desires with others, these are all forms of diffusing the concentrated power of your imagination. When you speak of your desires before they are manifested, you scatter the seeds of creation to the wind, rather than planting them firmly in the soil of consciousness. I knew a gentleman in New York, a brilliant businessman by all external standards, who constantly struggled to bring his grandest visions into being. Despite his intellect and connections, his most cherished dreams remained elusive. One evening after one of my lectures, he approached me with frustration evident in his demeanor. "Neville," he said, "I've visualized, I've affirmed, I've done everything you've suggested. Yet my business expansion refuses to materialize. What am I missing?" I looked at him and asked a simple question: "To whom have you spoken about these plans?" His expression revealed the answer before his words confirmed it. "Well, I've discussed them with my partners, my wife, my colleagues. I've been gathering opinions to refine my approach." "There," I replied, "is the root of your failure to manifest. You have violated the principle of silence." I explained to him that the unmanifested state is like a delicate embryo in the womb of consciousness. Exposure to the harsh light of external discussion can cause it to dissolve before it has gathered sufficient strength to be born into objective experience. I advised him to cease all discussion of his plans and to commune only with his own wonderful human imagination, which is God himself creating in him. 3 months later, this same gentleman approached me after another lecture, his face illuminated with joy. Without speaking a word, he handed me a newspaper clipping announcing the very business expansion he had been attempting to manifest. "I told no one," he whispered. "I simply knew it was done." This, my dear friends, is the power of silence in manifestation. When you learn to still the external conversations and the internal dialogue of doubt, you become aware of signs that your manifestation is moving from the realm of imagination into the world of form. Let me explain the mechanics of this process. Every desire once conceived in imagination exists immediately as a spiritual reality. Your consciousness has already accepted it as complete in what I call the fourth dimension, the realm of spiritual completion. The journey of manifestation is not one of creating something new, but rather of allowing what already exists in spiritual form to clothe itself in the garments of physicality. This journey from spiritual conception to physical birth requires gestation. And just as an expectant mother does not need to announce her pregnancy immediately to every acquaintance, so too should you guard the sacred state of your unmanifested desires until they are ready to reveal themselves naturally. During this gestation period, if you maintain faithful silence, not an anxious, waiting silence, but a confident, knowing silence, you will begin to witness signs of your manifestation approaching. These signs are confirmations from the universe that the seed you have planted in consciousness is indeed growing, developing, and preparing to burst forth into your three-dimensional reality. What are these signs? They are synchronicities so perfect, so mathematically precise in their timing, that they could not possibly be mere coincidence. They are overheard conversations that seem to speak directly to the desire you have been nurturing in private. They are unexpected opportunities that align perfectly with your inner vision. There are resources appearing just when needed, people entering your life who possess exactly the connections or skills required for your manifestation. I recall a young woman who attended my lectures in Los Angeles. She had been visualizing a very specific home, a Spanish-style villa with a red-tiled roof, a courtyard with a fountain, and citrus trees in the garden. The price of such a home far exceeded her current financial means. But she faithfully applied the law of assumption, feeling the naturalness of owning such a home while maintaining complete silence about her desire. One afternoon, she found herself driving in an unfamiliar neighborhood due to a detour. As she rounded a corner, there stood the exact home she had been imagining in her mental scenes. Without thinking, she pulled over to admire it. An elderly gentleman was tending to the garden, and noticing her interest, approached her car. "Do you like this old place?" he asked. "It's beautiful," she replied, careful not to reveal the full extent of her recognition. The conversation that followed revealed that the man was preparing to sell the home, but dreaded dealing with real estate agents and open houses at his advanced stage. He was looking for someone who would appreciate the home's character and history. Within weeks, through a series of events that can only be described as miraculous, the young woman arranged financing on terms that matched her budget precisely, and she acquired the home at a fraction of its market value. When she shared this story with me, she emphasized one crucial detail. "I never told anyone what I was imagining, not even my closest friends. But once I began my mental work, I started seeing Spanish tiles everywhere. Magazine covers featuring similar homes appeared in my mailbox. Television programs suddenly showcased Spanish architecture. It was as though the entire universe was confirming that my assumption was being realized, even before the physical home came into my experience. This, my dear friends, is the pattern of manifestation science that appears when one practices faithful silence. Your external reality begins to echo the contents of your consciousness in increasingly specific ways, building toward the complete externalization of your desire. Why does silence possess such power? The answer lies in understanding the nature of consciousness itself. Your consciousness is the only reality. I cannot emphasize this fundamental truth enough. What you are conscious of, you manifest. When you discuss your unmanifested desires, you become conscious of their absence, of the gap between your current state and your desired state. You focus awareness on the lack, not the fulfillment. Furthermore, the opinions and doubts of others become entangled with your pure vision. Their limited concepts of possibility infiltrate your consciousness, diluting the clarity of your assumption. Remember, the world is yourself pushed out. Others merely reflect back to you your own states of consciousness. If your consciousness is contaminated with doubt, the world will dutifully reflect that doubt back to you in countless ways. In silence, however, you maintain the purity of your vision. You commune directly with your own wonderful human imagination, which, I remind you, is God Himself in action within you. In this sacred silent communion, there is no contradiction, no doubt, no limitation imposed by conventional thinking. There is only the pure creative power of I am, declaring what is true. Consider the wisdom in the biblical instruction. Go, tell no man. After healing the leper, Jesus commanded him to say nothing of what had occurred. Was this mere modesty on Jesus' part? No. It was a profound spiritual instruction related to the law of manifestation. The transformed state, the healed condition, needed to root itself firmly in consciousness before exposure to the doubts and contrary beliefs of others. Similarly, when Peter, James, John witnessed the transfiguration of Jesus on the mountain, they were instructed to tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen from the dead. The vision, the revealed spiritual reality, required protection from the limiting beliefs of the unenlightened mind until it could fully manifest in the world of form. I urge you to adopt this same sacred silence regarding your own transformations and manifestations in progress. When you feel the naturalness of your desire fulfilled, seal it with silence. Know within yourself it is done. Then move through your days alert but relaxed, watching for the signs of your manifestation approaching. The signs will come. They always do, for it is law. Not wishful thinking, not vague metaphysics, but immutable law as exact as mathematics. The signs follow the faithful practice of silence with the same certainty that day follows night. A gentleman once approached me after repeatedly failing to manifest a significant career advancement. I've been affirming my new position for months, he explained, but nothing has materialized. Upon questioning him further, I discovered that he had been discussing his techniques with colleagues, explaining to his wife each evening how he was using the law of assumption to secure the promotion, even journaling extensively about the process rather than the completion. I advised him to cease all discussion or analysis or focus on the how of his manifestation. Instead, I instructed him to capture the feeling of already occupying the new position, to fall asleep each night in that consciousness, and to remain completely silent about it to everyone. Within 3 weeks, he began noticing peculiar coincidences. His current supervisor was unexpectedly transferred to another department. A project perfectly suited to showcase his unique talents landed on his desk. A senior executive who had never spoken with him previously began engaging him in conversation in the elevator. He recognized these as manifestation signs, the bridge of incidents constructing itself to lead to his desired end. 2 months after embracing the practice of silence, he was called into the director's office and offered precisely the position he had been imagining, at a salary exceeding his original assumption. The most revealing aspect, he later told me, was that during the meeting the director used phrases that were almost identical to those I had been hearing in my own imagination. It was as though I had scripted the entire conversation in advance. Indeed, he had done exactly that. For in the silence of his focused imagination, he had planted the seed that grew into that precise experience. The science he witnessed along the way was simply the evidence of that seed breaking ground, sending up its first tender shoots toward physical manifestation. Now, my friends, let me address a question that may be forming in your minds. If silence is so crucial, how does one distinguish between the wise silence that nurtures manifestation and the fearful silence that stems from doubt or shame regarding one's desires? The distinction lies in your inner feeling state. The silence I advocate is not the tense silence of anxiety, wondering if your desire will manifest. It is not the embarrassed silence of one who fears ridicule for their ambitions. Rather, it is the peaceful, confident silence of one who knows that what they have assumed in consciousness is already accomplished in spiritual reality and must, by law, project itself into physical experience. This silence is suffused with gratitude. It is as natural as the silence of one who, having deposited $1 million in the bank, feels no need to repeatedly announce their wealth to others. The knowing is enough. The inner acknowledgement is complete. In this state of grateful knowing silence, you carry yourself with a quiet confidence that others may notice but cannot quite define. This itself becomes a sign of your manifestation in progress, this subtle shift in your bearing, this unshakable certainty that permeates your being. I recall a dear friend who had spent years struggling with financial scarcity. After attending my lectures, she began applying the principle of silence to her manifestation of abundance. Rather than continuing to discuss her financial difficulties with friends and family as had been her habit, she assumed the consciousness of wealth and held her silence. She reported to me the remarkable shift that occurred, Neville, within days of my new practice. I began finding coins on the sidewalk, pennies at first, then nickels, then dimes and quarters. A rebate check I had forgotten about arrived in the mail. A client who had owed me a small sum for months suddenly paid their invoice. These were small amounts, to be sure, but I recognized them as signs confirming my new state of consciousness. She continued her faithful silence, neither boasting of these initial signs nor discussing her practice. The signs accelerated. A distant relative sent her a birthday gift of $500, something that had never occurred previously. She was offered a project at work that came with an unexpected bonus. A property she had invested in years earlier, which had been sitting stagnant in value, received a purchase offer well above market price. Within 6 months, her financial situation had transformed completely. The fascinating aspect of her story was that each manifestation sign seemed to be calibrated perfectly to her expanding capacity to accept abundance. The universe did not immediately drop $1 million in her lap, which might have overwhelmed her consciousness and been rejected as impossible. Instead, evidence of her shifting financial reality appeared in graduated steps, each one expanding her acceptance of prosperity until the full manifestation of abundance became her natural state. This pattern of graduated signs is common in significant manifestations. The universe, which is really your own wonderful human imagination, operating beyond your conscious awareness, knows exactly how to build the bridge of incidents that will carry you from your present state to your desired state in the most natural manner. Your task is simply to maintain the assumption of the wish fulfilled and to honor that assumption with faithful silence, watching with alert interest as the signs multiply around you. Now there is another dimension to this practice of silence, that we must explore the silencing of the internal voice of doubt and contradiction. For many, this inner voice is far more destructive to manifestation than any external discussion could ever be. You may refrain from speaking of your desires to others, yet maintain a running commentary within your mind that contradicts the very state you are attempting to assume. This internal argument must be silenced if your manifestation is to proceed unimpeded. Remember the biblical injunction, let the weak say, I am strong. Not I will be strong, not I am becoming strong, but I am strong, the full acknowledgement of the desired state as an accomplished fact. When the internal voice argues, but you are not strong, you are weak, true silence consists of gently but firmly refusing to entertain this contradiction. A useful practice is to respond to all internal doubts with a simple statement. That may be true in the world of shadows, but in the reality of my consciousness, where creation actually occurs, I am precisely what I have assumed myself to be. Then return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. This internal silence, this refusal to argue with your manifestation, creates a vacuum that must be filled. Nature abhors a vacuum, and into the quiet space created by your silenced doubts will flow evidence of your new reality. A distinguished physician who attended my lectures in San Francisco shared with me his experience with this practice. For years he had struggled with an inner voice that constantly reminded him of his humble beginnings, suggesting he was an impostor in his profession despite his credentials and accomplishments. After learning the principle of silence, he began systematically refusing to engage with these thoughts. Whenever the doubtful inner voice spoke, he would acknowledge it briefly, then firmly turn his attention to the consciousness of being an exceptional, confident physician beloved by his patients and respected by his colleagues. The external signs were remarkable, he told me. Within weeks of adopting this practice of inner silence, I received an invitation to speak at a prestigious medical conference, something I had always desired but never been offered. A journal published an article I had submitted months earlier and had nearly forgotten about. Former patients began referring their friends and family to my practice in unprecedented numbers. The most striking sign, he continued, came when a senior colleague who had always been somewhat cold toward me stopped me in the hospital corridor and said, I don't know what's different about you lately, but your diagnostic insights have been exceptional. I find myself looking forward to our consultations. Nothing in my technical abilities had changed. What had changed was my consciousness. And the science confirmed that my inner silence was bearing fruit. This, my friends, is the pattern you will observe in your own life when you practice both external and internal silence regarding your manifestations. The signs will come with increasing frequency and specificity, confirming that the seed planted in imagination is growing toward its inevitable expression in reality. Now, allow me to address another aspect of silence and manifestation science that is seldom discussed but tremendously important. There will be times in your practice when, despite your faithful silence and consistent assumption, the external world seems to move in precisely the opposite direction from your desire. This apparent contradiction is itself a manifestation sign of the highest order, though few recognize it as such. When your external reality appears to worsen after you have assumed your wish fulfilled, it is evidence that the old structure of your life is being dismantled to make way for the new. This is what the Bible refers to as the shaking of the foundations, the necessary reorganization of your affairs that must precede the establishment of your new state. I recall a woman who had applied the law to manifest a happy marriage after years of disappointment in relationships. Upon assuming the consciousness of being happily married to a loving, compatible partner, she maintained perfect confidence about her inner work. Within weeks, her current relationship, which had been stagnant but comfortable, suddenly dissolved in a series of unexpected conflicts. Her living situation changed abruptly, forcing a move. A job opportunity arose requiring relocation to another city. Friends expressed concern, seeing only the apparent dissolution of her life's stability. Had she broken her silence and engaged with their concerns, accepting their perspective of tragedy and loss, the bridge of incidents would have been interrupted, Instead, she recognized these dramatic changes as necessary components of her manifestation, the clearing away of structures that could not support her new state of consciousness. She maintained both her assumption and her silence, watching with alert interest as events unfolded. Within 6 months of this apparent collapse of her previous life, she had met and married a man who embodied every quality she had included in her assumption, in circumstances that could never have manifested had her previous relationship, location, and employment remained intact. The lesson here is profound. The signs of your manifestation may include apparent setbacks that are in reality the perfect path toward your desires' fulfillment. In silence, you develop the wisdom to recognize these signs correctly, neither resisting them nor interpreting them as failure of your manifestation. This brings us to a critical understanding about the practice of silence of manifestation science. The ultimate purpose of this practice is not merely to obtain the things or circumstances you desire, but to develop a direct first-hand knowledge of how creation works. It is to experience yourself as the creative power of the universe, to know yourself as God in action. Each time you maintain faithful silence and witness the signs of your manifestation unfolding in perfect order, you deepen this knowledge. It becomes not merely an intellectual concept, but a lived experience, as real and undeniable as your own hand before your face. With each successful manifestation, your consciousness expands. What once seemed miraculous becomes natural. What once required careful practice becomes spontaneous. You move gradually from the consciousness of applying techniques to manifest desires to the consciousness of being the manifestation power itself, expressing naturally through all aspects of your life. Consider the development of any skill, playing the piano, for instance. The beginner must consciously think about each note, each finger placement. With practice, the conscious effort diminishes until the accomplished pianist plays complex compositions without thought, the music flowing through them as a natural expression of their being. So it is with manifestation. The conscious application of technique, the deliberate assumption of the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the disciplined maintenance of silence eventually gives way to spontaneous creative expression. You no longer use the law. You experience yourself as the law in operation. The observation of manifestation science plays a crucial role in this development. Each sign you recognize is confirmation not merely of your specific desire's progress, but of the broader truth of your creative nature. Each sign strengthens your conviction, not in the law as something external to be applied, but in yourself as the creative principle in expression. I knew a man who began his study of the law with small manifestations, parking spaces, unexpected sums of money, specific encounters. He practiced faithful silence and became adept at recognizing the signs that preceded each manifestation. As his confidence grew, he expanded his application to larger desires: a specific home, a career advancement, the resolution of a long-standing family conflict. In each case, his recognition of the preliminary signs strengthened his conviction in the inevitable fulfillment of his assumption. After several years of this practice, I noticed a profound shift in his demeanor and his reports of his experience. He no longer spoke of working to manifest specific desires. Instead, he described living in a state of continuous creation, where his consciousness naturally expressed as harmonious conditions without deliberate effort. The most significant change, he told me, is that I no longer see manifestation signs as separate events pointing towards some future fulfillment. I now recognize that all of experience is a sign, a reflection of what I am conscious of being. The entire universe is a manifestation sign, responding precisely to my state of consciousness in each moment. This, my friends, is the higher understanding toward which our practice leads. The ultimate silence is not merely the disciplined non-discussion of specific desires. It is the tranquil mind that has transcended the need for external validation of its creative power. The ultimate recognition of signs is not merely noticing synchronicities that precede manifestation. It is the direct perception of all experience as the immediate expression of consciousness. Now, some of you may wonder, if silence is so crucial to successful manifestation, how are we to understand the scriptural injunction to make your requests known unto God? Does this not imply that we should speak our desires? The resolution of this apparent contradiction lies in correctly identifying who or what God is. God is not an entity separate from yourself, to whom requests must be communicated. God is your own wonderful human imagination. The speech that communicates with God is not verbal expression, but the language of feeling and assumption. You make your request known unto God by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, by experiencing in imagination the reality of your desire accomplished. This inner communication requires no words, no verbal or written expression. It is the direct impregnation of the subconscious through the medium of feeling. This is the true meaning of prayer, not beseeching an external deity, but communing with the creative power of your own consciousness through the assumption of the reality of your desire. And this communion is most perfect when wrapped in golden silence, undisturbed by the contradictions of external discussion or internal doubt. Let me share with you a personal experience that illustrates this principle with particular clarity. Many years ago, before I fully understood the law, as I now teach it, I desired to leave the island of Barbados and travel to the United States. The circumstances of my life at that time made such a journey seem impossible. I had no money, no connections in America, no obvious path to realize this desire. One night, in the quiet of my small room, I applied what I then understood of imaginative power. Rather than speaking my wish to others, or even formulating it in words within my own mind, I simply assumed the feeling of being in New York City. I felt the cool air of a New York autumn compared to the tropical climate I knew. I felt the solidity of pavement beneath my feet, rather than the familiar island soil. I heard the unique cacophony of New York traffic replacing the sounds of my island home. I maintained complete silence about this inner work. I told no one of my desire to travel to America, nor of my imaginative practice. Indeed, I scarcely acknowledged it consciously to myself after that night, returning to my daily routine without anxious attention to my manifestation. Within weeks, I began noticing unusual signs. A newspaper article about New York appeared prominently, though I had never sought such information. A distant acquaintance of my family mentioned their connection to someone in the shipping industry. Small sums of money came to me through unexpected channels. Had I discussed these signs with others, they would have seemed insignificant, coincidental. Had I analyzed them anxiously, trying to construct a logical bridge between these occurrences and my desired travel, I might have dismissed them as insufficient. But in my silence, I simply observed them with quiet interest, neither doubting nor attaching excessive significance to them. The signs accumulated. The seemingly disconnected events formed a pattern that, in retrospect, was leading unerringly toward the fulfillment of my desire. Within months, through a series of circumstances that appeared miraculous from the outside, but that I recognized as the natural unfoldment of my assumption, I found myself aboard a ship bound for New York, all obstacles having been dissolved through no conscious effort of my own. This experience and countless others in my life and in the lives of those who have applied these principles has convinced me beyond any doubt of the creative power of consciousness and the crucial role of silence in allowing that power to express freely. The signs of manifestation are always present for those with eyes to see and the wisdom to remain silent as the seed of assumption grows to fruition. These signs are not coincidences, not random events, but the logical, lawful unfoldment of the creative process initiated in consciousness. My friends, as we approach the conclusion of our discussion, let me emphasize more staying silent to the fertile soil in which your manifestations grow most vigorously. External silence, refraining from discussion of your desires and practices, protects the delicate seed of assumption from the potentially withering effect of contradiction and doubt from others. Internal silence, refusing to engage with your own questioning thoughts, maintains the integrity of your assumption until it manifests as objective fact. In this dual silence, you will indeed start seeing manifestation signs everywhere. The entire universe will rearrange itself to reflect the truth of what you have accepted in consciousness. These signs are not the fulfillment itself, but the shadows cast by the approaching manifestation as it moves from the realm of imagination into physical expression. Learn to recognize these signs without breaking your silence to discuss them. Acknowledge them privately as confirmation of your creative power. Then continue in the calm assumption of your wish fulfilled. The signs will multiply and intensify until the full manifestation stands before you as accomplished fact. Remember always, your consciousness is the only reality. What you are conscious of being, you must become. In the silence of pure assumption, undisturbed by external discussion or internal contradiction, this creative process proceeds with perfect precision according to law. I challenge you to test this principle in your own experience. Select a desire, perhaps something that has thus far eluded your attempts at manifestation. Formulate clearly in your mind the state you wish to attain. Then, in a moment of quiet relaxation, assume the feeling of already having realized this state. Feel the naturalness of it, the reality of it, until the assumption carries the conviction of reality. Then maintain your silence, both external and internal. Tell no one of what you have done. Do not analyze the process or look anxiously for results. Simply live from the assumption that what you have imagined is already fact. Watch with alert, but detached interest as the signs begin to appear in your world. Note them, acknowledge them privately, then continue in your calm assumption. The signs will increase in frequency and relevance, constructing the bridge of incidents that leads inevitably to your manifestation's complete expression in reality. This is the law, and it operates with mathematical precision for anyone who applies it correctly. The silence you maintain is not inaction, but the most profound form of action, the deliberate focusing of creative power without dissipation through speech or doubt. In this silence, you participate consciously in the divine creative process that is your birthright. You experience yourself as God in action, as the imagining power that shapes reality itself. There's no higher calling, no more worthy endeavor than this conscious cooperation with the creative principle of the universe. So I say to you with all the conviction of my being, stay silent, and you will indeed see manifestation signs everywhere, signs that confirm your true identity as the operant power of the universe, signs that validate your direct participation in the creation of your reality, signs that herald the imminent expression of your assumption as concrete fact in your world. The signs are the shadows cast by your approaching manifestation. The fulfillment itself, the complete expression of your assumption in physical reality, follows the signs with the same certainty that the body follows the shadow, that the object follows its reflection. In faithful silence, observe these signs with gratitude and continue in confidence in the perfect operation of the law. Then when your manifestation stands before you as accomplished fact, you may speak of it, if you wish, not as something gained through technique or effort, but as the natural expression of what you have been conscious of being. This is the mystery and the glory of your creative nature. This is the practical application of the highest spiritual truth. This is the law that sets you free from limitation and reveals you to yourself as the divine creative power in expression. Stay silent, watch for the signs, and know beyond all doubt that what you have assumed in consciousness must manifest in your experience. It is done. You are the operant power in your world. You and you alone are the architect of your life experiences. The world you see around you, with all its joys and sorrows, triumphs and challenges, is but an outward reflection of your inner state of consciousness. It is a mirror, faithfully reflecting back to you the sum total of your beliefs, assumptions, and imaginal acts. Now you might ask, but Neville, how can this be? Surely the world exists independently of my thoughts and feelings. To this I say, the world as you perceive it exists nowhere but in your consciousness. Your senses may tell you otherwise, may insist on the solidity and unchangeable nature of your circumstances, but I tell you this is an illusion, a shadow play cast by the light of your own imagination. Consider for a moment, when you dream at night, do you not experience a world that feels every bit as real as your waking life? Do you not interact with people, places, and situations that seem to exist independently of your will? And yet, upon waking, you recognize that entire world was created within your own mind. So too is it with what you call your waking reality. The great secret then is this: your imagination is the very workshop in which you forge your life experiences. every event, every circumstance, every person in your life is there because you have imagined them into being, whether consciously or unconsciously. This is the true meaning of the biblical phrase, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. But let us delve deeper into this truth. When we speak of focusing on yourself and your dreams, we are not talking about mere positive thinking or wishful daydreaming. No, we are speaking of a far more potent and transformative practice, the art of living from the end. To live from the end means to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. It means to enter in your imagination into the state of consciousness you would occupy if your desire were already a present fact. This is not about visualizing a future event, but about experiencing here and now the reality of your fulfilled desire. Let me give you an example to illustrate this principle. Suppose you desire financial abundance. The common approach would be to focus on the process of acquiring wealth, working harder, saving more, investing wisely. But this approach keeps you rooted in the consciousness of lack, of not yet having what you desire. Instead, I urge you to ask yourself, how would I feel if I motioned financially abundant? What would my inner conversations be like? How would I carry myself? What thoughts would occupy my mind throughout the day? Then, having identified these feelings and states of mind, your task is to assume them now in your present reality. You see, my dear friends, the secret is not to think about your desire, but to think from the state of its fulfillment. This is the true meaning of prayer, not beseeching an external deity for favors, but aligning your consciousness with the reality you wish to experience. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Neville, this sounds like self-deception. How can I feel wealthy when my bank account tells me otherwise? To this I say, your senses show you only the effects, never the causes of your reality. By persisting in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are operating on the causal level of existence. And the outer world must, by law, reorganize itself to match your new inner state. Remember, consciousness is the only reality. What you are conscious of being, you are. And what you are, you create. This is the true meaning of the biblical injunction to be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. By renewing your mind, that is, by consistently assuming the state of consciousness of your wish fulfilled, you transform your entire world. But let us be clear, this is not about escaping reality or denying your present circumstances. It is about understanding the true nature of reality as a malleable, responsive substance that conforms to your dominant mental states. It is about recognizing your power as a creative being and wielding that power consciously and deliberately. Now you might ask, how do I begin this practice of living from the end? How do I focus on myself and my dreams in this way? The answer lies in the use of your imagination, that divine gift that sets you apart as a creative being in this universe. Each night, as you lay your head upon your pillow, I want you to enter a state of relaxation. Let the cares and concerns of your day fall away. Then with your inner eye, construct a scene that implies the fulfillment of your desire. Make it as vivid and as real as you possibly can. Engage all your senses in this imaginal act. If your desire is for a loving relationship, feel the warmth of your beloved's embrace. Hear their voice whispering words of affection. Smell their familiar scent. Make the scene as real and as natural as any memory of an actual event. If your dream is of professional success, see yourself in your ideal work environment. Feel the satisfaction of a job well done. Hear the congratulations of your colleagues. Experience the pride and fulfillment of living your purpose. Whatever your desire may be, construct a scene that implies its fulfillment. Then enter into that scene. Do not watch it as a spectator, but participate in it fully. Be there in your imagination, experiencing the joy and satisfaction of your wish fulfilled. As you fall asleep, carry this feeling with you. Let it be the last thing in your consciousness as you drift off to slumber. For in sleep, when your conscious mind is at rest, these impressions sink deep into your subconscious, the fertile soil from which all your future experiences will grow. But do not limit this practice to your nighttime reveries. Throughout your day, whenever you have a quiet moment, return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Let it color your mood, influence your posture, inform your inner conversations. Remember, my friends, your inner conversations are incredibly powerful. They are the backdrop against which your life unfolds. Most people carry on these inner dialogues unconsciously, rehashing past hurts or worrying about future problems. But you, armed with this knowledge, can consciously direct your inner talking to align with your desires. If you desire health, do not engage in inner conversations about illness or weakness. Instead, hear yourself saying, I am vibrantly healthy and full of energy. If you seek financial abundance, let your inner voice declare, I am abundantly provided for in every way. These inner conversations, persistently maintained, will transform your world. For whatever you consent to in your mind, whatever you feel to be true, must outpicture itself in your reality. This is the law of your being, as unalterable as any law of physics. Now some of you may be wondering, but what about action? Surely we must do something in the outer world to realize our dreams. To this I say, inspired action will flow naturally from your assumed state. When you truly live in the end, when you fully embody the consciousness of your wish fulfilled, you will find yourself naturally and effortlessly taking the steps that lead to its manifestation. This is the meaning of the biblical phrase, the vision has its own appointed hour, it ripens, it will flower. If it be long, then wait, for it is sure, and it will not be late. Your only task is to hold fast to the vision, to persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The how, the when, and the where of its manifestation are not your concern. Trust in the perfect unfolding of your desire, guided by a wisdom far greater than your own. Let me share with you a personal experience to illustrate this principle. Many years ago, when I first arrived in New York City, I had the burning desire to speak at Town Hall. Now, at that time, I was unknown, with no connections and no apparent means of realizing this dream. But instead of focusing on these seeming obstacles, I chose to live from the end. Each night, as I fell asleep, I would imagine myself standing on the stage at Town Hall. I felt the solid wood beneath my feet. I saw the sea of faces before me, heard the rustle of the audience, felt the satisfaction of sharing my message with eager listeners. I lived in this state, feeling it to be true, despite all evidence to the contrary in my waking hours. And then, my friends, the outer world began to conform to this inner conviction. Within a matter of weeks, through a series of events that seemed entirely accidental, I found myself invited to speak at Town Hall. The very scene one had enacted in my imagination came to pass in the outer world, down to the smallest detail. This, my dear friends, is the power that lies within you. This is the creative force of your own wonderful human imagination. It is not limited by your past experiences, your current circumstances, or the opinions of others. It is bound only by your capacity to believe in the reality of your imaginal acts. Now, let us address a common concern that arises when people first encounter these teachings. Many worry that by focusing on themselves and their own desires, they are being selfish or neglecting their duties to others. Nothing could be further from the truth. You see, my friends, you cannot give what you do not have. By focusing on your own growth, your own dreams, your own expansion, you are increasing your capacity to be of service to others. As you transform your own consciousness, you elevate the consciousness of all those around you. Remember the words of the Master, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. The kingdom of God is not a place in space or time, but a state of consciousness. It is the state of knowing yourself to be one with the creative power of the universe. When you seek this state first, when you prioritize the alignment of your consciousness with your desires, everything else falls naturally into place. Moreover, as you begin to experience the fruits of this practice in your own life, you become a living testament to the power of imagination. Your very being becomes an inspiration to others, showing them what is possible when one takes control of their inner world. But let me caution you, this work requires persistence and faith. You may not see immediate results in your outer world. The seed you plant in your imagination needs time to germinate and grow. During this period, you may face doubts, both from within yourself and from others. This is where the real test of your faith comes in. Can you persist in the feeling of your wish fulfilled even when your senses deny it? Can you remain loyal to your vision, even when the outer world seems to contradict it? This is the mark of a true master of faith. Remember the biblical story of Abraham, who was promised countless descendants when he was old and childless. Against all odds, against all evidence of his senses, he persisted in his faith. He dared to believe in the reality of that which was not yet manifest. And in due time, his faith was rewarded. So too must you persist in your imaginal acts, in your assumption of the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Do not waver, do not doubt, do not give in to the temptation to judge by appearances. Hold fast to your vision, knowing that what you are conscious of being, you must become. Now let us delve deeper into the mechanics of this practice. When you focus on yourself and your dreams in the way I am describing, you are engaging in a profound act of self-love and self-respect. You are declaring to the universe, and more importantly to your own subconscious mind, that you are worthy of your desires. This act of self-affirmation is crucial. Many people sabotage their own success because deep down, they do not believe they deserve it. They may go through the motions of pursuing their dreams, but their inner conviction tells a different story. By consistently assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are reprogramming your subconscious mind. You are overwriting old patterns of lack, limitation, and unworthiness with new patterns of abundance, possibility, and deservingness. This is why it's so important to make your imaginal acts as vivid and as real as possible. Your subconscious mind does not distinguish between what you vividly imagine and what you actually experience in the outer world. By presenting it with vivid, persistent images of your desired reality, you are training it to accept this new reality as fact. And once your subconscious accepts something as fact, it works tirelessly to bring it into manifestation. It influences your perceptions, your decisions, your actions, all to align with this new accepted reality. This is the power of your subconscious mind. And by learning to work with it rather than against it, you unlock truly limitless potential. But remember, my friends, this is not about forcing or straining. The kingdom of heaven is not taken by violence. Your imaginal acts should be playful, joyful, natural. They should feel like slipping into a comfortable, familiar state rather than an arduous exercise of will. Think of a child at play, fully immersed in their imaginary world. They do not doubt the reality of their imaginings. They do not strain to believe. They simply are what they imagine themselves to be, fully and without reservation. This is the state you must cultivate in your own imaginal work. Now, some of you may be wondering about the role of action in this process. Surely you might think, I can't just sit around imagining all day. Don't I need to do something to make my dreams a reality? To this I say, right action will flow naturally from your assumed state. When you truly live in the end, when you fully embody the state of your wish fulfilled, you will find yourself naturally inspired to take the steps that lead to its manifestation. These actions will not feel like hard work or struggle. They will feel natural efforts, almost inevitable. You will find yourself in the right place at the right time, saying the right words, making the right decisions, all as a natural outflow of your assumed state. This is the true meaning of the phrase, the signs follow. They do not precede. The outer actions are not the cause of your success, but the effect of your inner transformation. They are the shadow cast by the light of your imagination. Let me give you another example from my own life to illustrate this principle. When I first began giving lectures on these truths, I had a deep desire to reach a wider audience. I imagined myself speaking to large crowds, sharing these teachings with people from all walks of life. Now, I did not go out and frantically advertise or promote myself. I did not strain or struggle to make this happen. Instead, I lived from the end. In my imagination, I saw myself standing before packed auditoriums. I felt the joy of sharing these truths with eager listeners. I experienced the satisfaction of knowing my message was reaching and transforming lives. And then, my friends, the outer world began to conform to this inner conviction. Opportunities began to present themselves. Invitations to speak at larger venues started to come in. People began to spread the word about my lectures. All of this happened naturally, effortlessly, as a result of my inner work. This is the power that lies within you, my dear friends. This is the creative force of your own wonderful human imagination. It is not limited by your past experiences, your current circumstances, or the opinions of others. It is bound only by your capacity to believe in the reality of your imaginal acts. Now let us address another common concern that arises when people first encounter these teachings. Many worry about the ethical implications of this practice. They ask if I can imagine anything into being. What's to stop me from using this power for selfish or harmful ends? To this, I say, the very nature of this practice precludes its misuse. For when you truly enter into the state of your wish fulfilled, when you fully embody the consciousness of your desire, you are aligning yourself with the highest good. You see, my friends, at the deepest level of our being, we all desire the same things: love, joy, peace, fulfillment. When you imagine from this place of your highest self, you naturally align with these universal desires. Your imaginings become not just for your own benefit, but for the benefit of all. Moreover, as you practice this art of imagining, you will find your desires naturally refining themselves. What once seemed important may fall away as you connect more deeply with your true self. Your imaginings will become purer, more aligned with your highest good and the highest good of all. This is the true meaning of the phrase, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." As you align your consciousness with your highest self, with the creative power of the universe, everything else falls naturally into place. Now, my friends, I want to address a question that often arises when I share these teachings. People ask, "But Neville, what about the suffering in the world? What about those who are oppressed, impoverished, or ill? Are you saying they have imagined this for themselves?" This is a profound question, and it deserves a thoughtful answer. First, let me be clear, this teaching is not about blame or judgment. It is about empowerment. It is about recognizing the creative power that lies within each of us and learning to use it consciously. You see, most people are not aware of the power of their imagination. They do not realize that their inner assumptions and beliefs are shaping their outer reality. They are imagining unconsciously, often focusing on what they fear or what they lack, rather than on what they desire. Moreover, we are all influenced by the collective consciousness of our society, our culture, our time. Many of the limitations and sufferings we experience are the result of collectively held beliefs and assumptions. But here's the wonderful truth. Just as we have imagined these conditions into being, we can imagine something different. We can change our individual consciousness, and in doing so, contribute to changing the collective consciousness. This is the true meaning of being the change you wish to see in the world. By focusing on yourself, by imagining a better reality for yourself, you are not being selfish. You are contributing to the elevation of all humanity. You are adding your light to the sum of light. Remember, my friends, consciousness is the only reality. The world you see around you is a reflection of consciousness, both individual and collective. By changing your consciousness, by persistently imagining a better reality, you are literally changing the world. This work of imagination is not separate from practical action in the world. Rather, it informs and inspires that action. When you live from the state of your wish fulfilled, you will find yourself naturally taking the steps that lead to its manifestation. You will be guided by an inner wisdom that far surpasses mere intellect. So I urge you, my dear friends, to take up this practice with all seriousness. Make it the central focus of your life. Every night as you fall asleep, and every morning as you wake, enter into the state of your wish fulfilled. Feel it, live it, believe in it with all your heart. Throughout your day, whenever you have a quiet moment, return to this state. Let it inform your thoughts, your words, your actions. Let it become the new normal for you. For what you persist in imagining, you must eventually experience. Remember, the time it takes for your imaginal act to become your physical reality is directly proportionate to the naturalness of the state. The more natural it feels to you, the more quickly it will manifest. This is why persistence is key. You are forming new neural pathways, new patterns of thought and feeling. In closing, I want to remind you of this fundamental truth. You are the operant power in your world. Your consciousness is the creative force that shapes your reality. By focusing on yourself and your dreams, by living from the state of your wish fulfilled, you are stepping into your true power as a creative being. Go forth then and create boldly. Imagine lovingly. Live fully in the consciousness of your fulfilled desires. For in doing so, you are not only transforming your own life, but contributing to the transformation of all humanity. You are fulfilling your divine purpose as a co-creator in this magnificent universe. Thank you, and may your imagination guide you to the fulfillment of all your dreams. Let me tell you a great truth that most of the world has yet to comprehend. You are not what you appear to be. You are not this limited mortal being trapped in circumstances. You are all imagination, and imagination is God. Therefore, you are God in the most literal sense, temporarily occupying a garment of flesh to experience your own wonderful creation. And just as God can speak worlds into existence, you too possess this same creative power to speak your world into being. Now, I know this may seem fantastic to some of you, but I am not here to theorize or philosophize. I am here to share with you what I know to be true through my own experience and the experiences of countless others who have applied this law. The transformation you seek in 2025 is not something that will happen to you. It is something that must happen within you first. Consider this. When you go to your home tonight and prepare for sleep, you will naturally disappear from this world of Caesar. Your physical body will rest, but your consciousness, your true self, remains ever active, ever aware. This simple act of daily disappearance holds the key to your transformation. For in that state between waking and sleeping lies the most fertile soil for planting the seeds of your desires. Let me tell you exactly what I mean. When you desire to transform any aspect of your life, you must first learn to disappear from your current state of consciousness. Just as you naturally disappear from this world when you sleep, you must learn to disappear from your present concept of self. This is not a metaphor. I am speaking of an actual psychological technique that, when mastered, will transform your entire life with mathematical precision. Now let us delve deeper into this principle. The Bible, which is not a historical document but a psychological drama, tells us, "Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." This transformation is not something that happens gradually through external effort. It happens instantly when you succeed in disappearing from your current state of consciousness and occupying the state of your wish fulfilled. Think of it this way: right now you hold a certain concept for yourself. You may see yourself as lacking in some way, perhaps financially limited or unfulfilled in your relationships, or restricted in your career. This self-concept feels solid and real because you have given it life through your attention and belief. But I tell you, it is nothing more than a garment you have worn so long you have forgotten it. It's not your true self. The secret to transformation in 2025 lies not in adding something new to your current state, but in completely disappearing from it. You must die to your present concept of self. And this death is not a physical death, but a psychological one. It is the complete abandonment of all that you now consider yourself to be. Let me share with you a simple but powerful technique. Tonight, when you lay your head upon your pillow, instead of reviewing the day's events or worrying about tomorrow, consciously choose to disappear from your present circumstances. Feel yourself sink deeper and deeper into the awareness of being who you wish to be. Do not think of how you will become this person. That is the old way of thinking that keeps you bound to your current state. Instead, yield completely to the feeling of being your desired self. If you wish to be wealthy, feel the naturalness of wealth. If you seek perfect health, feel the lightness and vitality of a perfectly healthy body. If you desire a loving relationship, feel the warmth and security of being deeply loved. The secret is to persist in this feeling until it becomes more real to you than your physical surroundings. You see, in 2025, you are not trying to change things in the world of Caesar. You are claiming your rightful place as the operant power of your universe. The outer world, no matter how solid it appears, is nothing more than a shadow, a reflection of your inner assumptions. Change the assumption, and you change the reflection. This is the law. I am reminded of a lady who came to me in dire circumstances. She was facing financial ruin, her relationships were in shambles, and her health was failing. She asked me what she should do to change her life. I told her exactly what I'm telling you now. Disappear completely from that state. She looked at me bewildered, expecting some complex system of affirmations or external actions. But I told her, your outer world is nothing more than your inner conversations objectified. Change your inner conversation, and you change everything. She began to practice this principle. Each night before sleep, she would disappear completely from her troubled state and assume the feeling of being the person she wished to be. She would feel the satisfaction of financial abundance, the joy of harmonious relationships, the vitality of perfect health. Within 3 months, her entire world transformed. Money came to her through unexpected channels. Her relationships healed in ways she could never have planned, and her health restored itself naturally. This was not coincidence or luck. It was the perfect working of law. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Neville, my circumstances are different. You don't understand my particular situation? I tell you, circumstances do not matter. Your current situation, no matter how desperate or seemingly permanent, is nothing more than a shadow cast by your previous assumptions. Change the assumption, and the shadow must change. In 2025, you must learn to distinguish between what Blake called the reality and its shadow. Your true reality is not what your senses show you. It is what your imagination claims it to be. The world of Caesar, with all its limitations and problems, is merely a shadow. You are the light casting that shadow, and you can change it at will by changing your conception of self. Let me give you a specific technique for this transformation. I call it the art of assumption. When you wish to transform any aspect of your life, you must first ask yourself, how would I feel if I were already the person I wish to be? Then, In that quiet moment before sleep, you must generate that feeling with all the intensity you can muster. Do not worry about the how. The how is not your concern. Your only task is to remain faithful to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. The infinite intelligence within you, call it God, call it your subconscious mind, call it what you will, knows exactly how to bring about the conditions necessary for the fulfillment of your desire. Remember, in 2025, you are not trying to make things happen. You are allowing them to happen by assuming the right state of consciousness. This is why I tell you to disappear from your present state. As long as you remain mentally tied to your current circumstances, trying to improve them or fight against them, you perpetuate them. Consider the story of the prodigal son. This parable is not about a wayward youth who physically returned home. It is about consciousness returning to its rightful state. The far country where he wasted his substance is the state of consciousness where you currently find yourself if you are not experiencing your desires. The Father's house where there is abundance and joy is the state of consciousness you wish to occupy. The journey home is not a physical journey, but a psychological one. It is the journey of disappearing from one state of consciousness and appearing in another. And just as the father in the parable did not ask where the son had been or what he had done, your own wonderful human imagination does not care about your past or your present circumstances. It only responds to what you are conscious of being now. In 2025, you must learn to be ruthless with yourself in this regard. When you catch yourself thinking from your old state of consciousness, thinking thoughts of limitation or lack, you must immediately disappear from that state. Do not fight these thoughts. Fighting them gives them power. Simply withdraw your attention from them and place it fully on the feeling of your wish fulfilled. This is what the scripture means when it says, leave the dead to bury their dead. Your old states of consciousness, your old problems and limitations are the dead. Let them bury themselves. Your task is to occupy the new state, to live from the assumption that what you desire is already yours. Now let me share with you another vital aspect of this transformation. Your outer world is nothing more than your inner conversations objectified. What are you saying to yourself throughout the day? What mental conversations do you carry on with others? These conversations, these inner debates and discussions are creating your future experiences. In 2025, you must become aware of these inner conversations and deliberately change them to align with your desires. If you wish to be wealthy, what kinds of conversations would you have if you were already wealthy? If you seek perfect health, what would your inner dialogue be if you were already in perfect health? Begin now to have these conversations internally. This is not pretense or self-deception. This is the actual creative process by which your world is formed. Your inner conversations are the breeding ground of your future experiences. Change the conversation and you change the experience. This is law. Remember, the Bible tells us, in the beginning was the Word. This is not referring to spoken words, but to your inner speech, your self-talk, your mental conversations. These are the words that create your world. In 2025, become conscious of these conversations and deliberately choose ones that imply the fulfillment of your desires. Let me tell you of a gentleman who came to me seeking to transform his career. He was stuck in a position he hated, feeling trapped and unable to advance. I told him to change his inner conversations about his work. Instead of mentally complaining about his current position, he began to have inner conversations implying he was already in his desired position. He would mentally hear congratulations from colleagues, discuss his new responsibilities with imaginary co-workers, feel the satisfaction of doing work he loved. Within weeks, an opportunity appeared that perfectly matched his desires. This was not coincidence, it was the law in operation. Now, some of you might be wondering about timing. You might be thinking, how long will this take? When will I see results? I tell you, time is purely psychological. What seems to take months or years in Caesar's world can happen in an instant when you succeed in reaching the right state of consciousness. In 2025, you must learn to live in the end. The end is the feeling of your wish fulfilled. When you truly capture this feeling and maintain it, time dissolves. The events and circumstances necessary for the manifestation of your desire will unfold naturally and effortlessly. This is why I tell you to disappear from your present state. As long as you are conscious of time, as long as you are waiting for something to happen, you are not living in the end. You are still caught in the consciousness of absence, of wanting, of seeking. This consciousness can only create more wanting, more seeking. Instead, assume the consciousness of already being what you wish to be. Feel it so intensely that it crowds out all other thoughts and feelings. This is what it means to pray without ceasing, to maintain the feeling of your wish fulfilled regardless of appearances. Remember the words of Scripture before they call, I will answer. This means that the fulfillment of your desire already exists. It is not something to be created. It is something to be claimed through your assumption of the right state of consciousness. In 2025, you must learn to trust this process completely. Do not be like doubting Thomas, needing to see before you believe. Be like the Master who said, blessed are those who have not seen and yet believed. Your imagination, fed by your assumption and sustained by your inner conversations, is creating your future now. Let me give you another technique for this transformation. I call it revision. Each night before you sleep, review the events of your day. But do not review them as they occurred. Revise them to match your desired state of being. See them happening in a way that implies the fulfillment of your desires. This is not merely positive thinking or wishful daydreaming. This is actively engaging your creative power to reshape your world. When you revise an event, you are actually changing the seed from which future events will grow. This is why the Scripture says the former things shall not be remembered or come into mind. In 2025, make revision a daily practice. If you had an unpleasant encounter, revise it to be harmonious. If you faced a financial setback, revise it to show abundance. If you experienced any lack or limitation, revise it to demonstrate fulfillment and expansion. Do this faithfully, and you will be amazed at how your world begins to transform. Remember, you are not trying to change things, you are changing yourself. When you change your concept of self, when you succeed in occupying a new state of consciousness, the outer world must change to reflect this inner transformation. This is law. Let me tell you of another success story. A woman came to me in deep depression. She had lost her job, her savings were depleted, and she felt completely worthless. I taught her this principle of revision. Each night she would revise her day to show herself as successful, prosperous, and deeply fulfilled. At first it seemed mechanical, even foolish to her, but she persisted. Within weeks, her entire world began to shift. Opportunities appeared that she could never have planned. People from her past contacted her with profitable ventures. Her bank account began to grow. Most importantly, her feeling of worthlessness disappeared completely. This transformation didn't happen because she changed things in the outer world. It happened because she successfully disappeared from her old state of consciousness and occupied a new one. The outer changes were simply the shadow adjusting to match the new light. In 2025, you must become aware of another crucial principle. Everyone in your world is yourself pushed out. Every person you encounter is simply playing the part that your consciousness has assigned them. Change your consciousness, and they must change their behavior toward you. This is why it's futile to try to change others or to blame them for your circumstances. They are simply reflecting back to you your own state of consciousness. When you successfully disappear from a state of consciousness that attracts negative experiences, the people in your world must either change their behavior or disappear from your life. Remember, consciousness is the only reality. Everything else, people, circumstances, events, are simply shadows cast by your consciousness. Change the consciousness and the shadows must change. This is not theory, this is law. Let me share with you one final technique for your transformation in 2025. I call it the congratulatory scene. Select a scene that would imply the fulfillment of your desire. Make it a scene where someone is congratulating you on having achieved your goal. Feel the handshake, hear the words of congratulation, experience the joy of achievement. Make this scene so vivid, so real, that when you open your eyes, you will feel as though it actually happened. Do this night after night until the feeling of achievement becomes your dominant feeling. This is not visualization or positive thinking. This is entering into a state of consciousness where your desire is already fulfilled. When you succeed in making this state feel natural to you, when you can live and move and have your being in it, your outer world must reshape itself to match this inner conviction. In 2025, you must learn to trust this process completely. Do not be concerned with the how. Do not try to make things happen. Simply occupy the right state of consciousness and let the infinite intelligence within you bring about the manifestation in its own perfect way. Remember, the outside world is dead, subsisting only on the life you give it through your attention and belief. Withdraw your attention from unwanted conditions. Give your full attention and allegiance to your desired state. Live from that state, think from that state, speak from that state. Your transformation in 2025 is not something that will happen to you. It is something that must happen within you. When you successfully disappear from your current state of consciousness and fully occupy the state of your wish fulfilled, the outer world has no choice but to transform itself accordingly. This is the law, and the law does not fail. It operates with mathematical precision. Your task is simply to apply it faithfully, persistently, until your desired state becomes your natural state. Then you will understand the truth of the statement, all things are possible to him who believes. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, remember this, you are all imagination. The world you experience is simply your imagination pushed out. In 2025, claim your rightful place as the operant power in your universe. Disappear completely from states of lack and limitation. Occupy fully the state of your wish fulfilled. Do this faithfully, persist in it. And I promise you, your world must transform to match your new conception of self. This is not magic, not positive thinking, not wishful dreaming. This is the law of consciousness in operation, and it never fails. Let this be your practice in 2025. Die daily to your old self, to your old concepts and limitations. Be born anew each day in the consciousness of your wish fulfilled. Live from that consciousness. Think from it. Speak from it. Do this, and you will experience the truth of the statement, all things work together for good to them that love God. And remember, God is your own wonderful human imagination. The transformation you seek is already complete in the imagination of God, your imagination. Your task is simply to enter into that completion, to occupy it fully, to live from it faithfully. Do this, and watch your world transform in ways you could never have planned or anticipated. For in 2025, you are not seeking to add something new to your life. You are claiming what is already yours by divine.